The morning mail delivery at Cristiano Ronaldo's Madrid residence typically consisted of official correspondence, business documents, promotional materials, and the occasional fan letter that had somehow bypassed his official fan mail processing system and found its way directly to his private address through determined research or fortunate connections with postal workers who recognized the significance of certain pieces of mail. On this particular Tuesday in October 2020, amid the usual collection of bills, contracts, and administrative paperwork that characterized the business side of his celebrity lifestyle, Ronaldo's personal assistant Maria discovered an envelope that immediately stood out from the rest of the day's correspondence due to its unusual characteristics and the obvious care that had been taken in its preparation and presentation. The envelope was made of high-quality cream-colored paper that suggested both expense and thoughtful selection, with Ronaldo's name and address written in elegant handwriting that demonstrated the kind of penmanship that had been taught in schools decades earlier but was rarely seen in contemporary correspondence dominated by computer printing and casual text communication. There was no return address anywhere on the envelope, which was unusual for personal correspondence, but not unprecedented for fan mail from admirers who preferred to remain anonymous while expressing their appreciation for Ronaldo's achievements, charitable work, or positive influence on their lives or the lives of people they cared about. The envelope was sealed with old-fashioned red wax that bore the impression of an ornate family crest, suggesting that the sender came from a background of traditional formality and possibly aristocratic heritage that valued ceremonial presentation and historical customs in personal correspondence. Inside the envelope, Maria found a single sheet of matching cream-colored paper containing a handwritten message in the same elegant script that had adorned the envelope's address, composed in formal Portuguese that reflected both education and generational differences in language usage that suggested the writer was significantly older than most of Ronaldo's typical correspondence. The message was brief but profound in its emotional content, and the gratitude it expressed for something that Ronaldo had apparently done without realizing its significance or long-term impact on the letter writer's life and circumstances. The letter read, "Dear Cristiano, 25 years ago, you were a young boy playing football in the streets of Funchal when you encountered an elderly man who had fallen and injured himself while walking to the market. You stopped your game, helped him to his feet, insisted on carrying his groceries, and walked with him to ensure he arrived home safely. That elderly man was my grandfather, and your kindness toward him during his final years meant more to our family than you could possibly have known at the time. He spoke of your gentle nature and respectful behavior until the day he died, often saying that the future of Portugal was bright because young people like you still understood the importance of helping others. I have followed your career with great pride, not only because of your athletic achievements, but because you have continued to demonstrate the same kindness and generosity that you showed to my grandfather when you were just a child with nothing to gain from helping a stranger. Your charitable work, your treatment of fans, and your dedication to using your success to benefit others has proven that my grandfather's faith in your character was well-founded. I wanted you to know that your childhood kindness created ripples of gratitude that have lasted for decades and influenced how our family thinks about community responsibility and the importance of helping those who need assistance. Thank you for being the person my grandfather believed you would become. With eternal gratitude and admiration, a friend you helped long ago." The letter was unsigned except for the phrase "a friend you helped long ago," providing no clues about the specific identity of the sender beyond the reference to an incident that had occurred when Ronaldo was approximately 10 years old and living in Madeira before his move to Sporting Lisbon's academy had launched his professional football career and transformed him from a promising local talent into an international celebrity whose every action was documented and analyzed by media outlets around the world. When Maria showed the letter to Ronaldo later that morning, he was deeply moved by its contents and spent considerable time trying to recall the specific incident described by the anonymous correspondent, Searching his childhood memories for details about helping an elderly man who had fallen in the streets of Funchal during his youth, when acts of kindness were motivated by natural compassion rather than public relations considerations or the calculated image management that characterized celebrity charitable activities. Although Ronaldo could not remember the specific details of the encounter described in the letter, he could recall numerous occasions during his childhood when he had helped elderly neighbors, assisted people who appeared to be in distress, or performed small acts of kindness that his mother had taught him were essential components of being a good person and responsible community member, regardless of his family's economic circumstances or his own ambitious dreams for future success. The letter's arrival prompted Ronaldo to reflect on the long-term impact of seemingly minor actions and the way that childhood experiences and moral education had shaped his adult values and approach to using his wealth and influence to benefit others who faced challenges or needed assistance that he was positioned to provide through his resources and public platform. Over the following weeks, Ronaldo found himself thinking frequently about the anonymous letter and wondering about the identity of the sender, not out of curiosity about their personal details, but because he wanted to express his appreciation for their taking the time to write such a meaningful message and to let them know how much their grandfather's memory and their family's gratitude meant to him personally. He discussed the letter with his mother, who remembered many of the incidents from his childhood when he had helped neighbors and strangers, and she confirmed that helping others had always been a natural part of his personality, rather than something that developed later as a result of his fame and success. His mother also suggested that the sender might be someone whose family had maintained connections to their old neighborhood in Funchal, where news about Ronaldo's charitable activities and personal character was followed with particular interest by residents who remembered him as a local boy before he became an international celebrity. Determined to find a way to respond to the anonymous letter writer, Ronaldo decided to place a message in the local Funchal newspaper, expressing his gratitude for the letter and his appreciation for the memory of helping someone's grandfather, while inviting the sender to contact him directly if they were comfortable doing so and would like to continue their correspondence or meet in person to share additional memories about their grandfather and the impact of that long-ago encounter. The newspaper message was published prominently and generated considerable interest throughout Madeira, where Ronaldo's childhood was well remembered by many residents who had witnessed his development from promising local talent to global superstar while maintaining connections to his home community and continuing to support local charities and youth development programs that benefited the island's children. 2 weeks after the newspaper message was published, Ronaldo received a phone call from a woman named Isabella Santos, who identified herself as the granddaughter of Manuel Santos, the elderly man Ronaldo had helped 25 years earlier, and who explained that she had been the author of the anonymous letter that had prompted his public response and invitation for further contact. Isabella was now a successful doctor working in Lisbon's hospital system, and she explained that her grandfather's stories about the kind young football player who had helped him during his final years had inspired her to pursue a career in medicine focused on helping elderly patients who often felt forgotten and invisible in modern healthcare systems that prioritized efficiency over compassion and personal connection. During their phone conversation, Isabella shared additional details about her grandfather's life and character, describing him as a retired fisherman who had worked hard to support his family but had struggled with mobility issues during his final years that made simple tasks like grocery shopping increasingly difficult and sometimes dangerous when he lost his balance or became disoriented while navigating Funchal's steep and narrow streets. She explained that Ronaldo's intervention on that particular day had prevented what could have been a serious injury and had demonstrated to her grandfather that younger generations still valued respect for elders and community responsibility, giving him hope about the future of Portuguese society and the character of young people who would eventually become leaders and role models for subsequent generations. Isabella also revealed that her grandfather had followed Ronaldo's career closely after their encounter, watching his matches on television and reading newspaper accounts of his achievements, while frequently commenting to family members that he had recognized special character traits in the young boy who had helped him, and was not surprised by his subsequent success, both athletically and as a person who used his fame to benefit others. When her grandfather died several years later, Isabella had inherited his collection of newspaper clippings about Ronaldo's career and charitable activities, and she had decided to write the anonymous letter after reading about Ronaldo's latest humanitarian project and remembering her grandfather's prediction that the kind young boy who had helped him would grow up to be someone who made a positive difference in the world. The phone conversation led to an invitation for Isabella and her family to visit Ronaldo during his next trip to Madeira, where they could meet in person and visit the location where the original encounter had taken place, allowing Ronaldo to pay his respects to her grandfather's memory, while continuing a friendship that had begun with a simple act of childhood kindness and had endured through decades of separation and dramatic changes in their respective life circumstances. When they finally met in person several months later, Isabella brought photographs of her grandfather and shared additional stories about his life, his values, and the impact that Ronaldo's kindness had made on his final years, when he often felt forgotten and marginalized by a society that seemed to value youth and productivity over the wisdom and experience that older people could contribute to their communities. The meeting was emotional and meaningful for both Ronaldo and Isabella, as it provided him with concrete evidence of how seemingly small actions could have lasting positive effects on people's lives, and inspired him to be more intentional about creating opportunities for intergenerational connection and support for elderly people who might otherwise feel isolated or forgotten by their communities. Isabella's career in geriatric medicine and her grandfather's influence on Ronaldo's understanding of community responsibility led to collaborative efforts to improve healthcare and social services for elderly residents of Madeira, including funding for programs that connected young volunteers with seniors who needed assistance with daily activities, transportation, or simply companionship that could improve their quality of life and sense of connection to their communities. The anonymous letter that had started as a simple expression of gratitude eventually evolved into a lasting friendship and collaborative relationship that demonstrated how childhood kindness could create ripple effects that influenced multiple generations and led to positive changes that benefited entire communities, proving that the most meaningful legacies are often built through accumulated acts of compassion and respect, rather than dramatic gestures or public recognition.